Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Jason and Zach again. And today we want to talk about third party risk and supply chain risk. What does that mean exactly? Well, what we're talking about is hackers using your vendors as a doorway into your network. Zach, what do you think about all this?
Yeah. So a lot of people know about insider threats and things like that, and that's an internal risk. Supply chain vendors, third-party vendors, and just any company that provides you services is going to be a source of risk. And so how do we mitigate that risk? How do we take a look at that risk? How do we understand that risk? And that's really what we're talking about here, Jay.
Yeah, definitely. And typically there's a chain of events that happens with these kinds of attacks, right? And they're exaggerated by shared accounts, vulnerabilities, or bad cyber hygiene. Typically, what happens is that a vendor's, like, think about one of your vendors, one of their users is going to click on a malicious link. And once that happens, hackers are going to gain access to that device. And once they gain access, then they're going to use the user's account to gain more access. They're going to elevate their privileges. And then they're going to gain access to everything that that user accesses. And then hackers use this access to then scam others and either encrypt, damage, or steal data. That's typically what we're seeing. And the vendors are being leveraged to scam their clients.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, going back to one of the previous sessions we did, business email compromise, and also phishing where they send fraudulent invoices. That right? That could certainly be one of the risks or attack vulnerabilities or attack vectors that's used for third party vendor risk. So one of the ways to combat this, like we were talking about, is to kind of focus on some of those things for your vendors and focus on things for yourself because you yourself, almost every company is a vendor to someone else, right? So you want them to you want your clients to also be looking at you in that light to make sure that you're being safe and they're being safe. If your vendors aren't doing this, then there could be a problem.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And you bring up a great point about, the use of false invoices, right? But that's not the only thing we use. For example, this reminds me of a small title agency, right? And they had great security controls in place to protect all their private and protected and personally identifiable information, right? But the thing is with this one, it wasn't really an invoice. The hackers got access to their CRM. Think about what can happen if hackers gain access to your CRM. And then in this instance, right, they started phishing all of that title agency's clients and relationships and started taking advantage of those relationships. Think about real estate agents. So they started phishing the real estate agents on this one. And, that resulted in over $500,000 being wired to the wrong accounts. And they can do this because they're relying on existing relationships, which equal trust, because you have that trust. So you see it coming from somebody you trust. So you automatically assume it's safe. And hackers rely on this, and it makes their story more convincing. And the result is not only was that the funds wired to the wrong place, but it also completely destroyed that trust.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that relationship's gone, right? You're never going to be able to trust them again. There's a few ways to kind of get around that, and we could discuss those, but I don't want to go into huge detail on that. But making sure that you're verifying, right? So speaking of verifying, what are some of the ways we can combat some of this third party kind of vendor security risks? And there's a few ways, right? I mean, one of the best ways is to make sure you're conducting security questionnaires and assessments. I mean, if you don't understand where your vendors are from a security perspective or their posture, you don't know, right? And that's a huge risk that you're taking on without understanding. You can review security documentation and policies. We do that all the time as a company. We do that internally and we do that with all of our vendors and clients because it's important. One of the big ones that typically gets left out because people just don't think about it is making sure that there are security clauses in your contracts. I mean, if it's not there, it doesn't matter. If it's not in a legally binding document, vendors aren't going to do it because it could cause extra time, extra cost. So why would I do that if it's not something that I'm mandated to do?
Yeah,
And if
that's perfect, right? And I think you basically just hit on like basically the three simple steps, and I'll elaborate on them a little bit more, right? Step one is understand your risk. Step two, evaluate your vendor systems. And then three, evaluate their access, right? So what that means, when we break that down a little bit more, understanding your risk, create a list of your vendors and review what each vendor actually does and create that list of risks that you have with each one. And then with regard to evaluating their systems, think about inspecting their networks, just like a hacker would. Find out if they're easy targets, and that way you can gain a better understanding of their security posture, right? And then when you think about evaluating their access, um, you can learn what types of access your vendors have by doing like a penetration test and uncover that hidden risk there.
Yeah, no, that I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like that's a lot of the things that we do as a company for our clients and our vendors, like I stated. Um, you know, again, going back to the whole risk management and understanding risk, we have this conversation daily, you and I, about just risk and understanding where risk is because a lot of people don't understand it. They're actually assuming we're taking on a lot more risk than they should or that they know they are, right? I mean, a lot of companies now, well, not a lot, but a few companies now have cyber risk insurance. But a lot of companies who have it don't understand what it is, don't understand why it's important or whether they're going to get paid out or not. So understanding the risks that you're taking on and the risk that your vendors could pose is a huge part of that and a huge part in the overall risk management process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll just leave it with this, right? I mean, that's something that we can do is a vendor risk analysis. And with that, what we do is we'll get a third party to analyze their network and yours, test the security settings, discover what an inside or outside threat could access. And we do that through a simple vendor supply chain risk assessment. So if you're interested in that, you can give us a call, let us know either way, and we can get that done for you and help reduce your cyber liability.
Yeah, everybody stay safe, protect yourselves, and if you need resources, we're here to help. So let us know.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. We'll see you next time.
Bye.